hope that information that we're providing for you is just at the beginning of understanding about our family dynamics and why we feel the way we feel, and so that we can uh, rewrite the stories in Christ, that what Jesus has done for us. So hope that our workshop, that what we are providing can be remain is more than just the knowledge, but remembering what Jesus has done for all of us, so that we can continue in that journey. Um, okay, so today our topic will be a little bit more um, deep in a way, because it will touch some of your hidden emotions, because now we are dealing about feelings. Yesterday was more of an understanding about our background, try to understand about our parents, but today is probably reveal a lot of your feelings. So grab a tissue if you needed to. All right. We went over yesterday that dynamics that we are experiencing with our parents. It probably may feel overwhelmed being a caregiver. Some of you already being in that position, providing the caregiving, being a caregiver, and lots of a responsibility between both parents in some family, and also with your children's, and taking care of the parents who are declining their functions, and dealing with the cultural and generational differences as well, and unresolved childhood issues that we talked about, especially when we're talking about the sandwich generation. Remember that you are in the middle adulthood, but you're also taking care of your children, and it comes with a lot of responsibility. But at the same time, if you're married now, you have two sets of parents that I didn't study yet. Sorry about that. So that is the area that what we are all going through. So today, our topic is, why do these dynamics make us feel negatively? Mr. Roger, I didn't grow up with it. Do you guys know Mr. Roger? I didn't grow up with it, and I watched a couple of episodes, and I watched the movie that they made a couple of years ago. And so I went back, watched a couple of episodes as well. Mr. Rogers said one of the episodes, it resonated with me so much that I use it a lot when I especially provide parenting seminars. So Mr. Rogers said, human beings learn best and most from other humans, especially from people who really care about them. Early childhood relationship experiences shape an individual's brain. You have to kind of think about, especially when child are born, first 3 years, they are not capable of a thinking, but they are human. So often, up to the age 3, according to the neuroscientists, they are not understanding logic, reasoning, or even verbal commands that you are trying to teach your child, but they absorb everything through their right brain. So which means their senses got planted in our body to survive, using through their senses. What they see, mom's face, father's face, they receive that, am I safe or not? Okay? And they are hearing noises, loud noises, is just natural. We're starting. Calm voices is soothing them, right? And smell, taste, especially touch. They're using those senses to receive understanding about their surroundings. So this is the reason why early childhood up to the age of 3, around 5, is very, very important. If you are already parents, that's probably you notice that your child around 3 and becoming a 4, they will ask you a lot of questions. Why? Because now they started to reasoning it. Anything that if they remember in their brain the mother's angry face, now they will connect the reason with that. My mom is mad, maybe I am not good. So all the 3 years of information that they store in their brain, now they use that, how they feel every day, how they think, the things that they remember. And then sometimes their body remembers more than their brain. Okay? And also how they behave. So sometimes, you are scolding why they are behaving in that way, but probably learn from somewhere. So those relationship always shapes our children's brain and any human brain. So we have to kind of remember those developmental stage. So last year, I believe, it was last year or early this year that your church invited us for the attachment theory. So since we went over, I will use a little bit of information. So during those early childhood development, and especially in a relationship with their parents, now they're developing secure and insecure attachment style. So according to the Dr. Daniel Siegels, based on attachment theory, every child needs 4 S's. They have to feel safe, as we talked about it. Again, due to the time, although I prepared some of information, if we need to go back, I will share more, but if you can Google and ChatGPT, they will tell you. Just put that Dr. Daniel Siegel's attachment parenting, and you will see a lot of information that I'm about to share. So all our children needed to feel safe. They have to be seen. We have to pay attention to what they need, how they are emotionally attuned with that, how they can cope with the things that they are going through. And also they have to be soothed when they're in hurting or feeling uncomfortable. Somebody needed to soothe them. They themselves cannot do that for them. So through those developments, now they can feel secure. We all know that secure attachments will be good, right? So they can have a healthier communication, building healthier relationship with others. Even if a failure or a problem comes, they know how to do that. On the other hand, most of us, more than 80% of us, or maybe greater than 90% of us, are developed with insecure, one of the types of insecure attachment. But the insecure attachment typically is shaping also building internally sense of who we are as a young age. Is of course you will say to your children, I love you, you're precious, you're special. But the way you are interacting with them probably innately in different message. So insecure attachment usually resulted in fear and anxiety and uncertainty in relationship. Early childhood relationship experiences usually manifested as deep-seated fear of a rejection, abandonment, difficulty with trust one another, and a constant need for reassurance. Interesting about the attachment theory, even if you do have insecure attached parenting style with your parents or relationship style from your parents, if you meet another spouse, have a secure attachment, within 5 years, according to the research, you will earn the secure attachment. It could be from your husband, it could be from your friends. We as all believers, we already received that secure attachment from Jesus Christ. But why we are continue to experience these negative feelings with our parents? The reason why I'm connecting this is not only your relationship with your parents, your relationship with your children are now is shaping your children and building this new attachment parenting style. You all of our parents who are coming to my room always say, what is your main goal? I want my child to be happy. I want my child to know how to cope and have a healthier relationship, but they themselves don't know how to build and provide. So again, with all this understanding, one other things that we needed to understand is also we have and carry this generational trauma. A lot of us, and then my parents are also receive this generational trauma because my grandparents are victim of Korean War. So they actually experienced Japanese colonization, lost all their lands, sometimes lost their siblings, and just survived. And then also male patriarchal culture and a system, women are not valued. All those things are embedded in our parenting when my parents are doing that with us. And then now we are carrying that and then pass down to our next generation. Dr. Esther and I and then other teams are going to the Cambodia next week for the mission. And then Cambodia, another big fact that we learned before we were going, only 30 years ago, genocide had happened. All intellectuals and anyone who wear the glasses got killed because they think they are smart. Vietnamese, you know that, right? All this generational trauma that they went through, they never experienced this, that what you and I are privileged to know and receive. There's a psychological or emotional impact that our parents experienced, no one was curious about. We all received just behaviorally, they're crazy. We are often labeling our parents, they're crazy. Well, for some reason, all our parents are personality disorder. But probably you learned before this term, the family tree. I want you to go back home just to have a little bit of exercise. You or myself, okay? My parents, my mom and dad, and then maybe with your wife or husband, have sets of mom and dad. And then probably you guys have children too. And listen to the stories. All this generational trauma is coming down to that, however, we receive all those emotional dysregulation that they've been using it as a reactive in a situation, but we understand and judge as if that's them. But none of us as a child had questions about how their relationship with their parents. When I was in school, we had this all homework. I have to go back to my mom and dad, needed to have this study. I couldn't help myself to cry. My mom, as a firstborn and female, needed to stop going to school because she needed to support her brothers to go to school. And she got beat when she wanted to study. So in order for us to understand about ours, we also needed to go back just 1 degree above. And what was their relationship with their parents and what kind of experience that they have. So through that, now we as a children, we learn that behavior, how they express their anger, their frustration, their needs. Now we are doing the same thing to our children. Monkey see, monkey do. As I shared, Mr. Roger, either it is good or bad, your children observing is exactly the way you are handling it. The verbally and logically, we wanted to teach them, but it doesn't go because they learn and observe how we cope with those issues. And also, most of our parents have very, very unrealistic expectation on us, right? So our parents always wanted to have all our time. Now they're retired. They have nothing to do. But if you are asking, can you take care of my kids? just babysitting. They don't want to. Or maybe they do. But all they want is spending time with you as if you have nothing to do. And then one time, a couple of years ago, my mom was very, very sick. So I have the flu. I have to stop all my work. I have to go back to Korea and then just taking care of my mom during the COVID. It was very, very tough. So now, after 2 months, I have to go back. I have to do work, right? I have to come back. So I needed to get some help, social services or caregiver. I have to hire somebody. You know what my mom said? I don't need help. And then, Mom, you need help. You know what my mom said? I don't want a stranger in my room. Why should I have to pay for a caregiver when I have you? They want all free. But they don't know that it wasn't free, that I have to stop working. If I don't work, who's going to pay me? But our parents think that during their time was a little slower compared to these days, how we work. We do have our responsibility and our duty to do that, but our parents don't see that. They all wanted to have just us. And then things that we're doing it still is not enough. And sometimes I left feeling that they don't appreciate it. No matter the age of adult child, you and me, parents know what button to push. They just know the words that they're using it sometimes. Oh, I'm actually quite kind and calm person, but my mom knows how to bring my worst side of it. It doesn't happen to me a lot, but my brother, because obviously my mom didn't have a good relationship with my dad. So oftentimes my mother is saying to my older brother, you are just like your father. That flipped my older brother. He just loses it, even until today. He just cannot handle that word because we know you're just like your father means it's not a good thing. Or you're just like your mother. We know what that means. Right? And sometimes you still haven't learned. You are the same. We are going through this relationship, but deeply rooted and never resolved the wound and never talked about it. Never, or no one was actually curious about how I feel, why I feel a certain way. But at the same time, no one had a questions for our parents why they do a certain way. So I wanted to invite Dr. Esther to share more insight about her own experience, and I will come back after.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you more examples of my life. I know this is all recorded, so just share it amongst yourselves. And don't tell my family it's published. Actually, we have to put it on YouTube as well, actually. So I'm going to give you examples of the 5 areas, or some of the areas that Dr. Meajan talked about. So the first one on attachment style. The emotion that came up for me growing up was the word unconfident, and how I felt that way. So growing up, I think now I can analyze my mom's attachment style was probably avoidant, and mine was, as I was growing up, anxious, ambivalent, and then now I'm avoidant myself. But my mom did not know how to show emotional support, especially even as a child when I became like physically hurt. I would be slightly bleeding after a fall, and you know how we go to mom, mommy, I'm bleeding, doing? And she's like, you're not going to die. That really quieted me quickly. And so it was never the way I expected. And I think that's why I have some high pain tolerance growing up. And in my adult years, her inability just to hear me out when I'm trying to gripe and complain a little bit, because I still saw her as my social support, but she didn't know how to just be there and just listen. Sometimes it's quickly to give me advice or quickly to judge. And that led me to feel unconfident and not safe to share deep thoughts and emotions. So that was a little bit of unfortunate thing. The generational trauma example, you'll understand why I said I felt confused. So there was a time when my parents, they were doing missions in India and they came back. They were with us for several months straight. And my housemate and we're going to go out for lunch. So I asked my mom to join us. And you want to come to lunch with us? She's like, no, that's okay. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because I have American culture. Yes means yes, you know. So my keen friend whispers, ask her again. I'm like, why? She just said no. So I'm like, okay. Mom, don't you want to have some lunch? No, it's okay. Just go. I'm like, see, I told you she said that. And then my friend's like, one more time. Like, what? That's weird. She just said no twice. Okay. Mom, you didn't eat lunch, so just come for lunch. You know, just have some lunch quickly and we'll come back. She's like, okay. What just happened there? When I discovered that she has to be asked 3 times, right? I learned that no is not always a no. And that was very confusing. And so later on, I connected it to my mom's past. She grew up where her biological mom passed away, and maybe during college years, and her father, my grandfather, her father was abusive and an alcoholic. So he was a very mean dad. And I never knew that because he was a very loving grandfather to me. So I would never have known that. So when I learned that, I was really just like, wow, what did you guys go through? So her emotional needs were not met, and she was unloved without any affection from her father. So that allowed her to grow up needy and expecting or looking for that amongst her children, me and my sisters. So this kind of like no not meaning a no, you know, being confused that way, I think she just really wanted to be sure that it's not a rejection and she really is wanted and really is loved. But the third one, for expectations, I have 2 examples of when I felt guilt or I could have felt a lot of guilt. The first one was during residency. Mom and Dad, they moved back to LA to live with us for some time. And one day I noticed she was sad. You just have to notice that, right? So I asked her directly because I'm not really good with implicit language. I say, are you sad? Why are you sad? You don't spend time with me anymore. You know about, and Dr. Meiji just talked about like they want you to spend time. Well, this is an example for you. Okay, you're too busy, and the background of why she was saying that is while she was in full-time missions with my dad in India, they would come back for a week at a time. So I purposely would carve out the time and make sure it's a very special quality time and looking for places to eat and activities to do. And it's like a week-long fun vacation for them. And then they go back and then I'm hurrying up, catching up work. So now that they're living with me, I'm like, but I see you every day. We're living together. Practically we're together all the time. So what do you mean? And I wasn't meeting her expectations to tend to her boredom, to entertain her. And she thought moving back was going to be so fun every day. So now there's a risk that this could go into feelings of guilt because I could have reacted with, you know, I'm in residency. You know, I'm very busy. I'm on call all the time. There's just no way I can plan something every day with you. I could have gone there, right? But the Lord provided me with an idea on the spot. And maybe it was good that I was in a psychiatry residency, right? With behavioral modification. Okay, Mom, how about this? I will dedicate every Tuesday night. So every Tuesday night is you and me. We're going to have a date, and I'm going to find a restaurant to try out, and that'll be every Tuesday. Committed, and there's no other thing going to be scheduled that night. Okay. And then no more expectations after that regarding spending time with her. So this made her mood turn positive instantly, and she looked forward to those weekly dinners. And that was that. My second example about the expectations, so is the current time. As the eldest daughter, I shared this last night, who happens to be a physician, there is this unspoken expectation that I will take full responsibility for my dad's well-being. And I also place that expectation on myself. So it's not just others placing it on me. I do it to myself. So for me, the emotion about this one is burden and fear. And I do recognize that. And I fear that I will actually blame myself if something went wrong with the safety and health of the status of my dad. And this leads my behavior to nag frequently and rather loudly regarding his health and safety. Dad, why didn't you go for your walk today? Dad, you're watching too much YouTube. Dad, you're not eating the leftovers first and letting it rot in the fridge. Just dad, right? That is coming out of my fear and my burden about thinking that I'm not going to be labeled as a good daughter after he leaves. The fourth one is a time when I felt resentment, unresolved wounds that I had. I'll give you an example of when I grew up in a home where my mother was a sole breadwinner. So, I mean, every month, right, she had to make ends meet. And my dad did not really know how to take care of finances. You know, he probably would have if he could have, but he made unwise decisions, and it was always unto the Lord because he was a pastor. And one day, I went to college and I got my first credit card. You know how back then it was like you can charge up to $2,000. That was it, right? And they found out that I have a credit card, and they asked me to help pay off the current month's mortgage payment, which was a building that included our church and our home. So they ran out of money, and they're like, "We're gonna default." And I'm like, "You want to use my credit card that I just got? It's only $2,000. That's what we need. Like, otherwise, we might not have a church next month." I'm like, "Oh wow, okay." So mixing it with guilt and everything, right? So I let them charge it, and I had no choice because that responsibility and guilt fell on me too, so that the loan doesn't default. And then a few months later, the building gets foreclosed anyway. We lost that building. We had to move out. And guess what? The credit is on my name, and I still had it, right? So I went away to med school and came back. And I visited home for a break. And remember, I'm still paying off that debt with interest. Because back then, you didn't have $2,000 to pay it all off, right? So my dad had the audacity to request to lend him $50. It was just $50. Oh, the pressure valve of my deeply suppressed resentment broke loose. And I let him have it. And he was like, "Where's that coming from?" And then I hurt his pride. And then I felt guilty for doing that. So that was an example of a hidden, suppressed, unresolved wound for me regarding the finances of my family. This last one is spiritually related. An example of how I felt annoyance. Right? And I'm describing some of the emotions and feelings that I discovered that I was feeling throughout all of these uh, relationship struggles of the past. So from childhood until college, my parents expected certain behaviors to prove that my standing with God was maintained. Because my dad was a pastor, my mom was a pastor's wife. And so they would check on perfect church attendance. Oh, I have so many stories about that. Dress code. Uh-huh. Even having crisp dollar bills for my offering of the money I didn't even earn. So that was very confusing. So there's too many for me to explain all of them. So this ended up translating into a very works-based approach in my spiritual walk. And the burden of legalism weighed heavily on me. And legalism, in my definition, is the belief that God is pleased or will bless me if I kept the law, if I kept the tradition. And that was uh, dictated to me by my parents of how I behaved. So a part of me kind of knew this isn't what salvation by grace should be like. I had a little bit of understanding, but that it was not matching. Something was not congruent. So I felt annoyed that I couldn't experience the true joy and peace that the Bible was talking about. And I felt like a hypocrite. So I was obliged to obey my parents. I felt I was obligated to obey God, all out of fear and out of pressure, rather than out of being full of God's grace. However, good news, one day someone explained the gospel message very clearly to me, that Christ declared it is finished on the cross. And I knew that verse all along, but it kind of finally dawned on me what that really meant. That there is no condemnation for those in Christ Jesus. That for by grace, not by works, so that no one can boast. That nothing will be able to separate me from the love of Christ that's in Christ Jesus. So God loudly reminded me to let your deadly doing down. He said, you are already fully accepted and loved. Stop trying to prove yourself to me. You're already my child. God kindly reminded me to come, Esther, you who are heavy laden and weary. He warmly invited me to taste and see that the Lord is good. So amazingly, around that same time, I mean, the timing was just so like crazy. My parents and my sisters, we were all actually receiving God's grace at the same time. Because we're all separately hurt, all separately burdened, all separately just wounded. And then we were each hearing this gospel. I don't know how that happened within a span of like 5 years, separately. And then that led to gradually that instead of pointing fingers and engaging in the blame game, instead of mom and dad blaming each other and worrying about their daughters, instead of my sisters blaming mom and dad and blaming our upbringing, interestingly, the 5 of us, the nuclear family, even my dad as the pastor, who used to be very, very arrogant, and he now says I was like the Saul, like Saul who became Paul. Separately, individually, but nearly simultaneously, we were all experiencing a revamping of our personal understanding about the gospel and focused on our own personal spiritual dryness and distortions about our outlook on God. And that led to this miracle of our family unit feeling some sort of harmony for the first time. So the difficulty to forgive one another was no longer an issue because there was nothing to forgive anymore. As we realized the depth of forgiveness that we received from the Lord ourselves, we were able to understand the underlying reasons for the past behaviors that we considered and labeled as wrongdoing. And we began to kind of like sort of like each other. That was a miracle. We looked forward to hanging out, and we became each other's support and confidant. We found ability to yield and accept one another's weakness. And we resorted to conclude the benefit of the doubt when we got disappointed here and there, because that's always going to continue to happen. We search for ways to let the others feel special, make it a big deal for every birthday, every anniversary, every holiday that we're talking about this season. We experience God's guidance to communicate, maybe a little bit more explicitly, so that nothing is left unsaid or misinterpreted. So as I shared with you yesterday, Mom is with Jesus since 2020, and now by God's grace, my sisters and I equally strive to care and love our aging father respectfully and lovingly. And to my dad's credit, he kind of makes it easier because his personality has changed because of the gospel as well. And he's a grateful and joyful dad. That's why it's hard to just get mad at him. So I'm not saying it's always a deep pleasure, right? We have our moments of just frustration. And during those toughest moments, I return to the truth that it is not I who save myself with my own effort. Therefore, I cannot love my aging dad with my own effort as well. It's only by God's grace. It's not by might, not by power, but by his spirit. And I have to remember that, especially when I want to pull my hair out when it comes to taking care of my dad. So I'm going to re-invite Dr. Meajan.
Yeah, today's topic that, as you kind of see, is we're kind of reflecting on our own, why we are feeling in a certain way. And sometimes looking back, even Pastor Jeff was sharing, I can treat my coworker and other people very well, and my friends' parents very respectful way, but not with my parents because of all these issues, the psychological and emotional, or even going back to the generational trauma that we talked about. So again, we as a psychologists or even psychiatrists or our teams are here and sharing some of the psychological point of view with you. But if any parts that you kind of resonate a little bit more, please get help. Please get help because it's resolvable. It can be, we cannot say that this can be completely removed or gone. You will not feel anything. That's weird too. You feel numb. That is another thing that we have to treat you if you feel numb. But it wouldn't bother you as much that you will react without knowing what was the true underlying issues. So if you really felt that in some way, please get help. And I wanted to conclude with how gospel and that what this the gospel truly become the good news for all of us. Even yesterday we were talking about the Colossians. The chapter 2 was saying this way: no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy, which depends on human tradition and the basic principles of this world rather than on Christ. So we're looking at the traditional value, we're looking at the philosophy. Again, sometimes the people are confused with the Buddhism. Buddhism is not a religion, it's the philosophy that they believe it in. So all those things can guide us in some level, but all these religions out there is making us to do, putting your effort, do more, love your parents, honor your parents, but it's not focusing on the Christ. Because the gospel is not providing the advice of what will make your life better. It is good news that what he has done for all of us. So his death and resurrection already provided this beautiful, the promises, right? But all the things that even though we as a psychologist, when I treat our patients, we of course guide them, the tips, strategies, how to communicate, all the skills that is necessary, we're helping them to build. But that is not enough. Because anything that involves with our effort will change the behavior. But the change in behavior will not gonna last long. often is a temporary. Probably you already experienced it with your children too. You're helping them to change some behavior, but maybe they are not doing it, but doing something else. Right? So if we wanted to change our parents, you will always fail. You also try to put your own effort to change yourself. You'll grind your teeth every night. Or your husbands will be always the victim, or getting all your baggage or your husband's to your wife, right? So we have to kind of see that all these principles and traditions and strategies will be lacking in power to change the heart. So what Jesus promised to us is not changing your behavior, that what your behavior needed to be done differently. So I wanted to go back the Colossians chapter 3 again, looking at it here. I will read the verse 7 first before we read today's verse. You used to walk in these ways in the life you once lived, but now you must rid yourselves of all such things as these: anger, rage, malice, slander, and filthy language from your lips. Do not lie to each other, since you have taken off your old self with its practices and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge in the image of its creator. Therefore, that's what we read yesterday. Therefore, now we are chosen people that we can be holy, dearly loved. Clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive whatever grievances you may have against one another. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. With all this, let's conclude with today's verse. Let's read it together. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body, you are called to peace, and be thankful. Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom through psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit, singing to God with the gratitude in your hearts. And whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. I will highlight in your hearts. Again, never Jesus focus on our behaviors. It will be the fruit of the Spirit. But what God does and transform in our heart through his death and resurrection. Our old self is buried and raised with the new self. And if you're looking at after the verse 18 to chapter 1 and 2, the dramatic changes of a new family structures. Probably Roman empires has a similar structure that you and I have. Male patriarchal, women have no value, slaves, some Koreans probably, we had a history of slaves, social classes, and then all that, right? But through Jesus Christ, he made everything completely new. And now we have new family structure. So when you are reading after the verse 18, you will see how wife has to treat their husband, how they needed to treat their wife. Father, how you needed to treat your children. And children, how you needed to respect your parents. And slave to the master in an entire social structure. So transformation is happened. There's no social classes. There's no social boundaries, not even ethnicity, not even traditions and principles, but completely reformed, renewed by our new family through Jesus Christ. So with this, let's experience the new relationship with our parents and also with our family and our children's. Thank you again for your time and your patience to listen all of our lectures today. So I hope that Ruan can come back and continue with the discussions.